Trade wars. And no, when I say that, that's not me referring to the possible title of the, I don't know, 10th Avengers movie, and neither is it me referring to that time in year 2 where you'd spend your lunch break swapping Pokemon cards with your friends, and then there was that one kid, that one fucking kid who told you to swap your Tepig card for his Delibird card, convincing you that his Delibird card was ultra rare. So then when you do the swap, you then realise that nobody wants to do swaps with you because the Delibird card is so common, it's useless. So you mate, I still want my Tepig card back. I hope you lose sleep over it. But when I say trade wars, I'm talking about this.
There are growing fears of a major global trade war tonight after President Trump announced sweeping tariffs on imports from Canada, Mexico and China starting tomorrow. And he added that very substantial tariffs would follow for the European Union. Goods exported from Canada and Mexico to the US will be hit with a 25% tariff. Products from China with 10%. Canada's Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said his country would face difficult times as a result, but promised a forceful retaliation. From Washington, here's our North America editor, Sarah Smith.
Yeah, sorry Sarah, hope it's not your first day or anything, but we're actually going to come back to me now instead. So moving on to tariffs, what are tariffs? If you saw my TikTok on tariffs, you'll already know this, but if you're too busy watching TikToks like this...
I'm not an ordinary cat. I'm a pookie cat, and I love my fans so much. That's why I purr, brrr, brrr, and meow for them. Wow!
Then you might not know what I'm about to talk about. So tariffs are an additional tax that businesses have to pay when they send off products to other businesses in other countries. A bit like how us guys are when we go on a date. You know, we take her out to a nice dinner, we have a really good night, and then the waiter comes, hands us the bill, we pick up the bill, we read it, and then at the bottom there's a VAT, an additional charge, and we panic. We fucking panic because we realise we don't have enough money for the VAT. So then instead of just being honest with our date, we make up this excuse that on the way here we were mugged, knife point, and we just forgot to bring it up this whole time. You should try it, it 100% works, 100% works. Now I'm all for big businesses and massive corporations paying more in tax to help the poorest in society. But is the honey monster really going to use the money coming from these tariffs to help the poorest in society? So in that case, what is the honey monster using tariffs for? Spite. You see, the honey monster wants to try get American businesses doing less business with businesses in other countries that he doesn't necessarily agree with their governments on. And in this case, these countries are China, Canada and Mexico. And businesses really may go down this route as they'll make less money because they're spending more of their own money to pay for the tariffs. But if American businesses really do go down this route, it could have a big impact on other countries' economies because less products are being sent that are provided to do business there. Plus, that impact is going to hit even harder as a few days ago the honey monster announced tariffs on all imports of steel and aluminum to any country. And look, this is huge. This is Greg from Succession huge, because that guy is fucking massive. You see, steel is used to make railways and then aluminum is used to make planes, and the transport sector is a large part of many economies across the world, including the UK's economy. And when an economy struggles, then the day-to-day prices in that country just continue to go up. Now, of course, a number of economists have already warned the honey monster about these tariffs because the same side effects that happened in the early 1900s when tariffs were a lot more common in the US could happen again. In the early 1900s, tariffs were very common in the US, but with that came a lot of side effects such as job cuts and prices increasing. So after this, the use of tariffs dropped dramatically, and by the mid-1970s, the value of tariffs was below 5%. And hey, look, all this was never a new thing for the honey monster. He has always had a stiffy over tariffs. But you think all the things I was just telling you now, that was getting heated? Oh no, this is about to get more intense than an episode of Married at First Sight Australia. Many countries across the world are now considering whether they go the route China has done, where they retaliate by now putting tariffs on products they send over to America. And the honey monster is expected to retaliate back even more. Like, I really do mean it. This is like an episode of Married at First Sight Australia. Get all these world leaders in front of the experts. They're having this toxic relationship, this tit for tat. Just get the experts to sort it out. I don't see why nobody's suggesting this yet. But you could be forgiven for not knowing this was going on. The honey monster has been dominating the news cycle recently, to the point where the UK government are apparently tired of him appearing in headlines so much because it's becoming a distraction of the things they're doing in power. It's kind of like when you decide to wait for Christmas dinner to announce that your fiancée is pregnant, only to be overshadowed by your Uncle Frank, who made the revelation that he was one of the 1,000 men who lined up to see Bonnie Blue. Yeah, cheers for that, Uncle Frank, you. And not only that, but the honey monster made such a big presence on the news this week that this seemed to be the only news story that didn't involve him.
A 200-year-old glass bottle filled with a mystery liquid was recently discovered on a building site in Lincolnshire. The contents of the bottle were tested by a local university student, Zara Yates, who found that it was full of urine.
Sure, most will call that a bottle of urine, but to me, that's just a third of Bear Grylls' meal deal. And also, what a shit science project to be given when you're paying for your degree. But let me just wrap things up here with some advice to all of you in the UK. The next time you're heading to the polling stations and you've been hearing politicians from Reform and Conservative talking about how they're gonna grow the economy, remember the ones that were actively backing the honey monster and knew of the impact that these tariffs could have. Because some of these right-wing politicians are now too afraid to admit whether they agree with these policies, such as this guy over here, the deputy leader of the Reform Party.
What about the tariffs?
Look, it's
Good
a negotiation.
idea, bad idea.
Look,
so you think he's bluffing?
It's a negotiation. He's not bluffing at all, but it's a negotiation.
A 25% tariff?
Very often when you start a negotiation, you don't end up, right, where you start. That's how negotiation works. The more we have smart business people coming into politics and negotiating on behalf of Britain, the better, rather than just rolling over and giving all our money away like this Prime Minister.
He says he's having a chat with him on the phone this morning, but as far as he's concerned, Canada, Mexico, China, it's a done deal.
And let's see where it ends up. It may well be a done deal.
But if it's a done deal, what's it going to do to the global economy? And what impact is it going to have on our economy?
You're clearly not interested in what's happening in the UK. I am. I'm negotiating on behalf of British citizens. What's right for us.
Why do you say that? Why am I not interested?
Because you're focused on...
I've lived in this country a lot longer than you.
Really?
Yeah.